Why? These people, O Muhammad, I want you to dissociate from them completely. Because for years you have been trying to make peace with them. And every time you make peace with them, they break their treaties with you. That's why sometimes you see on Fox News or on CNN, they give you Surah 9, verse 5 of the Quran. Kill the disbelievers wherever you see them. Without mentioning the number of treaties Rasulullah tried to make with them. Without mentioning how many times Rasulullah tried to call them towards his way. And yet every time he would sign a treaty, like many countries in the world do today, expecting people to honor the treaty, instead they go behind his back and kill his people. Therefore Allah told him, Bara'atun min Allah wa rasulah alladhina ahadtum min al-mushrikeen. Now I want you to dissociate from them. And therefore the meaning of the word Tabarra was to dissociate from the enemies of Allah or the enemies of the Prophet of Allah. And that's why we find that although the word Bara'a is used in Surah 9, many will ask the question, where is the word Tabarra used? You have highlighted the root of the word. But where is the word Tabarra itself used? And that's why the verse I have chosen at the beginning of my lecture today is the verse which is the verse where the word Tabarra is used. And it relates to the Prophet Ibrahim. You see, in this verse, what does it say? The verse comes forward and tells us about the life of Nabi Ibrahim. As you know, Nabi Ibrahim occupies a prominent position in not only the religion of Islam, but in the other religions of Christianity and Judaism. Hence, those religions are known as the Abrahamic faiths. Why? Because Nabi Ibrahim is seen as the father of these religions. Nabi Ibrahim's position reached the highest level when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we read in Ziyarat Warith, Assalamu alayka ya Waritha Ibrahim, Khalilullah. The Nabi Ibrahim had reached a level where he was a Nabi and then a Rasul. Then he became a Khalil, meaning he became Allah's friend. Meaning what? Meaning that he lived a lifestyle where Allah took him as his friend. Many times we seek to make friends in our life. A lonely human being is one without friends. And you find here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that friendship is the key to all success. And that Ibrahim is my friend on earth. Why? Because Nabi Ibrahim, in every movement he made in his life, he tried to bring people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And indeed, this should be the aim for all of us, that every movement we make, we should try to bring people towards Allah. Not in the sense that our aim should be to convert people. No. Our aim should simply be making people free thinkers. Because when Nabi Ibrahim lived in his community, you find that in his community there were many idol worshippers. These idol worshippers would come and there would be an idol for each one of them. On one day in the calendar year, these idol worshippers would go towards their temple or would go towards their festival, and they would leave their temple empty. What you found was that Nabi Ibrahim on that day thought to himself that this could be an opportunity to make them become free thinkers. How? He saw that all their idols were now free and that there was no one there to come near the idols. So he came himself and broke all the idols. When the people of the community returned, they came back and what did they say? They came back and they said that why are all our idols broken? We have heard that it's a youth who has broken them by the name of Ibrahim. Notice how much Allah praises the youth. Easily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said, or they could have said, that someone has broken our idol by the name of Ibrahim. No. It is a youth by the name of Ibrahim. Why? Because when a youth does something special, the whole community turns towards them. What happened was, they came towards Nabi Ibrahim. What did they say? They came towards him and they said, did you break our idols? Nabi Ibrahim replied to them in a way which highlighted that he wasn't so much concerned that they converted to his religion. No. He was concerned that the human being continues to be what he should have been, a free thinker. He comes to them and he says, if you are asking me who broke the idols, why don't you ask the big one, if the big one can speak? Meaning what? Meaning that you are worshipping an idol and this idol can't even speak. So why are you worshipping something which cannot even defend its fellow idols? That's why I remember Abu Dharr al-Ghafari narrates how he came towards the religion of Islam. He says that my tribe used to all worship the idols. He said one day I came with some milk and I went and placed it near the idol. He said as I was walking away, I saw a fox coming towards the glass of milk. And when it came and it drank all the milk. And then what does a fox do after it's drunk something? Lets it all back out on the idol. He said, when I saw it urinating on the idol, I said, if the idol cannot protect itself from the urine of a fox, how is it going to protect Abu Dharr al-Ghafari? In the same way, Nabi Ibrahim was able to make them think that these idols which you are worshipping can neither profit you or harm you, and they cannot even defend you. Yet there was one problem. The house which Nabi Ibrahim was brought up in was an unusual one. In which way? He was brought up by his mother and not by his father. You see the verse which mentions the word Tabarra, what does it say? وَمَا كَانَ إِسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ. Ibrahim's asking for forgiveness for his father. Many come forward and say this must mean father. Why? Because the word Ab, many of us know it as meaning father. Yet Nabi Ibrahim was not brought up by his father. Why? Because his father died at a young age. So who brought him up? He was brought up by his uncle. The problem and the reason why we say that he was definitely brought up by his uncle and not by his father was why? Was because of the fact that we believe that a prophet of God would never be in the house of a father who's a mushrik. The idea in the school of Ahl al-Bayt is that a prophet of God's father can never be a mushrik. You may have uncles who are mushrikeen, but to say that you have a father who is a mushrik goes against our aqaid. No. We say that Nabi Ibrahim was brought up by his uncle. His uncle was one of the most severe idol worshippers in the community. But what happened was, Nabi Ibrahim, being brought up by his uncle, tried to be peaceful in the way he acted with his uncle. How? You find that Nabi Ibrahim would come towards his uncle. He'd say to him, uncle, what are you doing worshipping these idols? Surely these idols cannot harm you, but they cannot benefit you as well. His uncle replied in a severe tone in Surah 19, verse 46. When he said to him, قَالَ أَرَاغِبٌ أَنْتَ عَنْ آلِهَتِي يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ. Are you trying to take me and my people away from worshipping the idols? لَإِن لَمْ تَنْتَهِي لَأَرْجُمَنَّكَ. If you don't stop, I'll stone you to death. When an uncle speaks like this to you, which way do you normally reply to him? As in, if your uncle came and said to you, are you trying to divert people away from me? If you don't stop, I'll stone you to death. Some of us, I think, might get a bit angry at our uncle when he speaks to us. There are some of us in our communities, our uncle says something very small, we get angry with them. Let alone when an uncle speaks like this. Look at the akhlaq of the Prophet of God, how he replies back to his uncle. He replies by saying, قَالَ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكَ سَأَسْتَغْفِرْ لَكَ رَبِّي. Peace be upon you, my uncle. I will ask Allah to forgive you. At the beginning of his relationship with his uncle, there was no animosity. His uncle told him you should worship idols. Ibrahim told him you should stay away from idols. When his uncle did not listen, Nabi Ibrahim said, okay, I'll ask Allah to forgive you. However, later on in the relationship, his own uncle became one of the staunchest idol worshippers, number one. Number two, threatened now that definitely he will be amongst those who kill Ibrahim. Why? Because as we know, Nabi Ibrahim was about to be placed in the fire and burnt and executed. When he reached such a level with his uncle, Allah revealed Surah 9 verse 114 of the Quran, where the word Tabarra is used. وَمَا كَانَ إِسْتِغْفَارُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ لِأَبِيهِ إِلَّا عَنْ مَوْعِدَةٍ وَعَدَهَا إِيَّاهُ فَلَمَّا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّهُ عَدُوٌّ لِلَّهِ تَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُ. Ibrahim's asking for forgiveness for his uncle was nothing but a promise he had made to him. The moment he realized that he was an enemy of Allah, he dissociated from his uncle.